Dear learners and listeners, welcome to this session. Today's topic is gender auditing and gender budgeting. This topic is part of the certificate program for gender and science and master's program in gender and development studies. And even if you have enrolled in master's program in women's and gender studies also, those learners can listen and they could able to know what is gender budgeting, why the budget and gender are budget and gender have been linked. That will certainly, this session will clearly give clarity for gender budgeting. You all must be wondering, why do we need to read about gender budgeting? First of all, we need to understand the strategies for gender budgeting. Gender budgeting doesn't mean that preparing a separate budget for male and female. It is not like that. When you have in a previous units and previous sessions, you would have listened that the society provides certain values and certain certain kind of works to be carried out by the male and female. Due to the certain values, because of the existing gender socialization and the patriarchal values in the society, the existing resources are also divided based on the existing values in the society. So most of the time, the female were not able to access and control over the resources. There is the limitation in accessing the resources for the female. So once then there is a different responsibilities due to the existing different values for the male and female. We have a different responsibilities. Male have a different responsibilities and female have a different responsibilities due to the existing values and the gender socialization process as well as the patriarchal attitudes existing in the society. Once you would have already read about the gender socialization, patriarchy and the existing societal values and roles for the male and roles for the female in the. So when we have a different roles for the male and different roles for the female, we have our needs also different. Male have a different needs and female have a different needs. According to their needs, we need to allocate the budgetary resources to address the needs. Main responsibility of the government is to address the needs of the different sections of the society. So these basic understandings we have clearly talked about the course 1 itself. Whether you are the gender and science student or masters in gender and development studies, this has been clearly explained in the first course itself. Now, since male and female, they have a different needs, there should be the different budget allocations. Here comes the gender budgeting. So first, in this session, we would learn about what is budget and what is gender budgeting, and we also could able to understand the linkage between gender and budgeting, and I will explain the need for gender budgeting as well as we will examine the benefits of gender budgeting. These are the major objectives as far as this session is concerned. So first we need to understand that what is budget. Budget is a government financial plan for a definite period. Okay, so according to Rainestorm, I quote, "A budget is a document containing the preliminary approved plan of public revenues and expenditure." From this definition, we could able to clearly understand that it is a document containing the preliminary approved plan of what is the revenue of the revenue for the government, how much the expenditure the government is planning to do that. This is the basic understanding about the budget. So, when we talk about the definition for the budget, certainly we need to understand the need for budget. Why do we prepare a budget? Okay, government could able to generate the revenue through various means. Like for example, there is a personal taxes, there is a professional taxes, and also government could develop the revenue through their own government by generating the revenues through the government aided institutions. Some governments, they have also run the public sector units. Whenever any public sector unit, if it successfully run, the government could generate the revenues. So certainly the government could able to generate the revenues. When we talk about the government could able to generate the revenues, certainly it needs to plan how it could able to spend those revenues. That is the first thing. Second thing is that in every year, the government could able to generate the certain percentage of the revenues. Within that revenues, how much it could able to spend for various sectors, whether it's in health, education, or improving the infrastructural facilities, transportation. So there are various, like a sports, there are various sector is there. So the government needs to decide how much it could able to spend for various sectors. So the government has several policies to implement to perform its functions to meet social and economic growth objectives. That is the main reason that the government has to prepare a budget. Second one is that it needs to implement various policies, like to spend on whether it comes to defense or administration or welfare policies, various growth and development the government has to develop. So it is necessary to find out the possible sources of funds, as well as government could able to generate funds from various sources. So how those funds could be able to spend on growth and development. This is the main reason that they have to prepare a budget. Why do they need to prepare a budget for every year? Means every year the government could able to calculate its own revenues. Based on its revenues, it could able to address various development issues, as well as it could able to spend for the country's growth. That is the main reason that it has to prepare a budget. Then the government should understand that the planning process of assessing revenue and expenditure is termed as budget. That is the term budget is derived from the French word which means leather bag or wallet. You must have seen many of the finance ministers from various countries, like they prepare a budget, and the elected representatives who assume as the minister, they present the budget in the elected bodies, like whether it's upper house, usually lower house is elected directly by the people. So when they present the budget, entire parliament they could able to convene, and the elected member or the minister of the particular department, finance department, you could have seen in the media that they carry the budget document and they could able to present in the parliament. Once after parliament passes it, it became the particular year's revenue and expenditure plan. Basically, it is the statement of the financial plan of the government. You could able to see in the budget that it could able to clearly talk about the income and expenditure of the government during this specific financial year. As far as India is concerned, the financial year runs between 1st April to 31st March. So it's like budget is the, as far as any country is concerned, the budget is the essential information document of the government. Budget is also provides the information of the government policies and programs. What is the government policy and how programs, how much the government could able to spend on particular policies and programs, that will be clearly stated in the budget. Budget may also have, if you look at any budgetary document, it may have two parts. The first part presents the overall picture of the government's financial performance. The second part of the budget presents the government financial plans for the period up to its next budget. These are the two parts of any budget. Every citizen of the nation, from an ordinary person to the representatives, everybody eager to know about the budget, as they would like to get an idea of the following. First one is that everybody will come to know about the financial performance of the particular government, and also through the budget, everyone in that particular country, they come to know the past performance of the any government. Second one is that every citizen, every individual in that particular country, they know about the financial programs and policies of the government of the following year. And next important issue, all of us must understand that how their standard of living will be affected by the government's financial policies in the next year. These are the things. So here we have clearly understood what is budget. Next important issues here, we need to understand that how the budget is linked with the gender. That is the important lecture in this session. Okay, so gender budget, all of us, you must understand that gender budget is not the separate budget. So the government, they won't prepare a separate budget for male and female. It is an approach, it's a government approach that can highlight the gap between the policy statements and the resources committed to their implementation, and ensuring that public money is spent in more gender equitable ways. Here I would like to explain little more about what is gender budgeting. As I have mentioned that due to the existing socialization process, it is difficult for women to access the resources in the sense whether it's an educational institutions or whether with regard to health facilities, whether it's a common property resources or controlling the properties, land and other resources, or like public sector institutions, it is difficult for female to access that. So when they compare with the male members in the society, the female, they have lagging behind in many respects. For example, if you take education as one indicator, we could able to assessing the basic with regard to educational indicators, literacy is the basic indicator to measure how far the male and female they could able to access the educational institutions. So when it comes to female literacy, the female, they are lagging far behind the male members in the society. Like that, when it comes to higher educations, always the percentage of the female accessing higher education, specifically education related to science and engineering, they are lagging far behind the male members in the society. So here, it is the responsibility of the government to address the existing differences between male and female as far as education is concerned. How could they do? Then government could able to allocate necessary resources. Here resources means basically budgetary allocations. They could spend enough budgetary allocations to address the or improving the female percentages in educational institutions. So here the issue is not whether we are spending on men and women, but whether spending is adequate for women's and men's needs. That's why in the beginning of the lecture itself, I clearly pointed out that there is a differences between male and female due to the existing differences in the society. So because of the existing differences in the society, allocation of the resources for men and women also different. So gender budgeting are the tool for implementing the government's gender mainstreaming commitments. Here as a learner, you all must be wondering what is mainstreaming. That the definition of mainstreaming already mentioned in the course 1 itself. Mainstreaming is nothing but bringing gender concerns at the every level and every institutions and improving the women's percentage in all the institutions. So how do they mainstream gender issues at every level in the every institutions? Through necessary budgetary allocations, government could able to improve women's presence at all levels, as well as the government could able to allocate necessary budgetary resources in every sectors. Then they could able to address women's issues. So it will link policy commitments across government departments with their budgetary allocations. So next important, now we could able to understood that the importance of gender budgeting, and gender budgeting is not about preparing the separate budget. It is the addressing the gender concerns in the existing budget. How do we address the existing gender concerns? First, we need to collect necessary data from the field. Then we could able to understand that the status of women and men in women's position and male's position in the various fields. According to their status and positions, the government could able to allocate necessary resources and they could able to address the concerns of the female members in the budget. As next, we could able to learn the definition of gender budgeting. As Sharp and Broomhill explained that, I quote, "They are a mechanism for establishing whether the government's gender equality commitments translate into budgetary commitments," I unquote. With the suitable economic underpinning, the government's equality commitments are unlikely to be realized. So gender budgeting initiatives go beyond assessing programs explicitly targeted at women and girls and seek to expose assumptions of gender neutrality within all economic policy and raising awareness and understanding that budgets will impact differently on men and women because of their different social and economic positioning. Here you could able to clearly understood the need for gender budgeting. In initial stage, the gender budgeting was termed as women's budget because the focus was on the impact on women and girls. More recently, the emphasis has shifted to gender because the term gender itself very inclusive term, where it includes both men, women and other genders also. So now we no longer talk about it's a women's budget. Now we need to mention it's mentioned as gender budget. So the emphasis has shifted to gender as a category for analysis and to avoid any misunderstanding that activists are working to produce separate budget for women. That is and also if you look at the gender budgeting, it involves analyzing budgetary policies that assess the real impact of income and expenditure on women and men and ensure that implemented programs do not accentuate social and economic inequalities between the sexes. So gender-based assessment budgets incorporate gender perspective at all levels of the budgetary process and restructuring the revenues and expenditure to promote gender equality. Here we need to understand that I have mentioned it's all levels. All level in the sense the government, whether the government is preparing the budget at the national level or state level or even in India some of the local body institutions, some of the municipalities, some of the even the Gram Panchayat level, they have prepared the gender budget, and they have collected gender disaggregated data. Based on their data, they could able to assess the levels of male and female according to their positions, according to their status. Even certain local body institutions, municipalities and Gram Panchayats, they could able to allocate enough revenues to address the concerns of the male, female and other genders. Thus, the process of gender budgeting equally results in gender responsive budgeting. When we talk about gender budgeting, the entire process, it is called as gender responsive budgeting. Means gender responsive budgeting or gender sensitive budget, gender budget, these are the different terms, like interchangeably we could able to use it. But when we talk about gender responsive budgeting, then it clearly talks about the existing process of gender budgeting. The process of entire gender budgeting itself exercise. In that exercise, they could able to address the concerns of the both male, female and other genders. So once the government decided to prepare the gender responsive budget, and they could able to conceive, they get able to plan, approve, execute, monitor, analyze and audit the budgets in a gender sensitive manner. So the entire process, not only preparations, they could able to plan, they could able to implement. Once they implement, during the process of implementing, they could able to monitor and they could able to analyze and audit the entire budgeting process in a very gender sensitive manner. It also involves analysis of actual expenditure and revenues on men and women as compared to men, like they could able to assess how much they have allocated for the women, how much they allocated for the men, and how much they allocated for girls and how much allocated for the boys. So it helps the government to decide how policies needs to be made, adjusted and reprioritized. It is a tool. The gender budgeting is a tool as part of the gender and development approach for effective policy implementation, where one can check if the allocations are in line with policy commitments and have, once they allocated, whether it had a desired impact or not. So thus the gender budgeting describes the government's expenditure on various programs and policies that address gender concerns in society. There are two important definitions as far as gender budgeting is concerned. As I have already mentioned, we call it as gender sensitive budget or gender budget or women budget, and it analyzes the various tools and process to facilitate the government to prepare the gender budgeting by incorporating the concerns of the both male and female. These budget exercises have recently begun using gender as a category of analysis, so they could able to prepare a gender sensitive budget. It's like incorporating the concerns of the both the genders and other gender also. In this entire process, they start with collecting the disaggregated data, and whenever they allocate certain amount, or whenever they could able to able to develop certain policies and programs, in the process of preparing the gender budgeting, they could able to decide, once it implements in the field, what impact that particular budgetary allocations could create on women, men and different groups in the society, with the cognizance of being given to the society's underpinning of gender relations. You know, gender relation is, there is a relationship between male and female. Due to the existing gender relations, the female are not treated on par with male members in the society. There is a existing gender differences. Due to the existing gender differences, and the female are lagging behind in many sectors and many areas, and they could also face various kinds of violences in the society due to the existing gender relations. The female that existing gender relations need to be altered to bring equity and equality in the society. Thus, gender budgeting, it's an initiative. How the government spend the public money to secure gender equality secure gender equality by allocating enough resources, and also even when they allocate certain resources, what kind of impact it could able to create on male and female. There are various steps in preparing the gender budgeting. First one is the analysis of the situation for men and women and girls and boys in a given sector. As I have given you one example with regard to education sector, like whether it's a health sector, you could able to see that the existing health like status of health in the particular country was assessed through various indicators. As far as female is concerned, like maternal mortality rate, child mortality rate, infant mortality rate, and resources, the existing resources, and as well as the availability of the resources, whether the female could able to access the resources. For example, when we talk about resources is not only about infrastructural facilities. Like we could able to see that like population doctors ratio and female population and female doctors ratio. These are the certain indicators. Through these indicators, we could assess the status of health in a particular state or country. So, like how we need to second step is to assess the extent to which the sector's policy address the gender concern. Then if there is inadequacy in the budgetary allocations, how we could able to implement. Once they implement, how we are going to monitor it, and when they implement, what type of impact that particular policy create on different genders indifferently, whether the policies could able to improve the male, female, other genders in the society. First of all, where is the need means basically to improve the human development, as well as to improve the status of male and female and other genders, and to alter the existing gender relations to bring equity and equality in the society. I hope today's sessions we could able to learn what is budget, what is the gender budgeting, the relationship between gender and budgeting, and the significance of implementing the gender budgeting. If we start implementing the gender budgeting, what kind of positive impacts we could able to create in the society, how we could able to improve the status of both male and female in the society. These are the various significant issues we have learned in this session. In the next session, we could able to learn elaborately how the government is preparing the budget and how much it was allocating in various sectors, what type of impact it has created, how it has improved the male and female through case studies and certain data we could able to learn. Thank you so much for listening this session. Thank you.